Welcome to a review of the very striking Peugeot 408. And this isn't just any old Peugeot 408, because this is the exact car that I have been running every day for the last 6 months. So that means that I can tell you pretty much anything there is to know about this car, which makes this review the ultimate guide to the Peugeot 408.
In case you didn't know, the 408 is at the upper end of Peugeot's model lineup and aims to deliver the practicality and raised stance of an SUV, but with sleeker, more dramatic styling.
Sounds like a pretty niche idea, but actually it isn't really anymore, because you've got rivals such as the Audi Q3 Sportback, the Cupra Formentor, the Renault Arcana and the closely related Citroën C5X. So while the 408 has its quirky looks and styling, which make it stand out from the outside at least, it needs to do way more than that to stand out in this surprisingly popular subcategory of car. Whether it does that is what I'm going to answer in this review.
Before I get started, don't forget to subscribe to the Parker's Cars channel and turn your notifications on so you get a reminder every time we publish a new video. At the time of filming, the 408 is available in 2 trim levels, Allure and GT, and 2 powertrains, 1.2 litre 3-cylinder petrol and a 1.6 litre plug-in hybrid, the latter of which is available with either 180 or 225 horsepower. The car I'm testing here is the 180 horsepower 1.6 litre plug-in hybrid in GT spec.
We'll start with the interior because it's a logical place to begin this review, and for anyone that has sat in a Peugeot of the last few years, this will be instantly familiar, because like the outside, it's a very striking, memorable design, but actually it doesn't really compromise on ergonomics. The only thing to watch out for, and this is a big thing, and you've seen it on other Peugeots, is the steering wheel, because usually steering wheels in cars, you look through the gap between the top part and the center part to see the dials. But in this, you don't. You look over the top of it, so the steering wheel is lower down. The idea being that it's more relaxing because you don't have to hold your arms up as high. Now, I actually quite like this. It works well for me and my size and shape, but I do know people that can't get used to it because they can't see the dials because this bit gets in the way. So definitely make sure you sit in one of these cars and check that out before you even consider buying it, because if you can't see the dials, that's a bit of a disaster. But yeah, I like it. I like the seating position as well, because you can get lower than you can in most SUVs, but if you want to, you can also sit higher. And also the leather and Alcantara trim that you get on this GT spec car is also nice, holds you in, and it looks pretty cool as well.
Much of the car's functions are controlled via the 10-inch central touchscreen. There's also a customizable touch shortcut panel below and some physical keys beneath that. The infotainment system itself is easy to navigate, and the ability to create your own home screen and shortcuts is very useful. There's been a couple of occasions where Apple CarPlay has crashed, but other than that, it's been pretty reliable.
I would like the software to be a bit slicker and quicker, because you've got some quite crucial functions on there that you use a lot, like the climate control, and sometimes it can be a bit laggy, which is a shame. What else? Oh, I've installed the My Peugeot app on my mobile phone, and it was a huge faff to get it working. It wouldn't connect to the car for some reason, but after a lot of back and forth with Peugeot's service department or their contact center for the app, we finally managed to get it working, and it's actually pretty good. It does all the important things. It stores my trip data so I can see the fuel economy. I can turn the heating on when it's really cold and defrost the car. I can cool the car down. I can check how the charge is going. I definitely recommend getting that and persevering if it isn't that easy to install in the first place, because yeah, it is worth it. What else? Material quality, I think, is very good on the whole. Yeah, there's some cheaper plastics around, but I think they're intelligently positioned around the car so that you don't feel like you're always touching them. I think the only thing that is a little bit cheap is maybe the indicator stalks, but otherwise on this GT trim car, we've got nice leather, got nice soft touch up there as well. quite a big fan of that. I like the design here with the shortcut buttons and the kind of piano keys. Not as nice as you get on a 508, but still pretty good, and also useful to have the shortcut physical buttons too. Also, on this GT spec, we've got the 3D instrument cluster, which everyone asks me about. It's a bit of a gimmick, but it does look quite cool, and it's a conversation starter with passengers, which is nice. And oh, there's also some games on the infotainment system if you're bored waiting for someone. So a little bit like a Tesla in that respect. Last thing for the interior, the options. I would definitely recommend getting the 7.4 kilowatt monophase charger for this car, because it reduces the charging time down from 3.5 hours to 1.5 hours. And if you value your time, that is absolutely invaluable. So definitely get that. And also the driver and passenger seat pack, that's also quite nice, because you get the massaging function, you get the electric seats and the memory function on the driver's side. And if you alternate between drivers on different days, for example, that's very handy to just be able to set your driving position and then get it back. You don't have to start faffing around with manual controls. So I think it's worth it.
So while it is worth spending a bit of extra cash on some optional extras, the 408 does come well spec'd as standard. The Allure version, from just under £32,000, comes with a 10-inch touchscreen and digital dashboard display, a reversing camera, keyless entry and keyless go, TomTom sat-nav and the ability to pre-program up to 8 driver profiles. The GT spec, meanwhile, priced from just under £35,000, adds a heated steering wheel, electric tailgate, acoustic front side windows, matrix LED headlights, lane positioning assist and Peugeot SOS assistance services.
So one of the surprising things about the 408 is how sleek it looks on the outside, but how much space you get in the back of the car. Now, the headroom isn't exceptional, I'll be honest. I do fit in here behind my own driving position, but I don't think I could be that much taller. And also bear in mind that this car hasn't got the optional panoramic sunroof, which I reckon will probably take away a bit more headroom as well. But what really stands out is the amount of knee room and foot room and just space in general that I've got down here. It's really impressive, and there's only a very small central tunnel area as well, so that means if you've got someone sitting in the middle, they've got a place for their feet too. So that's a big advantage. It is a bit dark back here on the negative side. I don't think the black headlining particularly helps there, and the windows aren't the largest. And I would also like to see a separate climate control zone, but I do appreciate the nets on the back of the front seats, the 2 USB-C points, the little storage area there, and if I fold this down, I've got a nice set of cup holders. So actually, for a car that looks that dramatic and sleek from the outside, I'm pleasantly surprised with the amount of practicality that you get in the rear.
Meanwhile, boot space depends not just on which powertrain you pick, but also whether you go for the optional premium hi-fi system. Opting for either robs space from the boot, more so in the case of the former. Speccing a straightforward 1.2 litre PureTech petrol 408 would get you 536 litres of boot space with all 5 seats in place, and 1611 litres with them folded down, and they fold in a 60-40 split. Opt for the hybrid like I have here, and this falls to 471 and 1545 litres, with much of the space being taken from the storage compartment under the floor. It's still big enough just to store the charging cable, but it's such a faff to squeeze it in, I usually just place it in the main boot compartment anyway.
If you decide to go all out and spec the optional £600 hi-fi system, you lose 17 litres of boot space from the hybrid and 28 litres from the 1.2 litre PureTech. But even then, it's not exactly short on space, and it compares very well with the Citroën C5X. So I've got no real complaints about the amount of cargo capacity. It's got plenty of room for all of my stuff, including the charging cable. The electronic tailgate is also very handy as well. It's made me super lazy because it is a pretty big unit to lift up, so I'm quite thankful for it, but it's supposed to have a hands-free system, but I can never ever get it to work when I want to. And in fact, it only starts to work when I'm doing something in the boot, and then it activates, and then obviously I clobber my head on it, which isn't much fun.
So far, so good for the 408, but what about driving? As a reminder, this is the 1.6 litre 180 horsepower plug-in hybrid version that's supposed to deliver a nice compromise between the convenience of petrol and the efficiency of electric. So, does it do that in reality?
So I have spoken about this in previous videos about the 408, and I think it's pretty fair to say that my opinion on the powertrain hasn't changed that much in between then and now, because when the battery is topped up, it's a nice car to drive. The powertrain works well. It's got 180 horsepower, 8.1 seconds to 62 miles an hour. It's smooth, it's refined, and around town when you can just use the battery, it's just like an electric car, but without too much power. But it's enough. It works well. However, what I am finding is that when the battery has run down, it's, even by plug-in hybrid standards, it's nowhere near as refined or as satisfying to use. It's quite loud, the engine, the responses are a little bit clunky. It just doesn't feel like it does with the battery, which is understandable, of course it is. But the issue I have is that I'm not getting the range from the battery that Peugeot suggests I should be getting. So the range on this car should be about 34 miles, and in reality, I'm not getting any more than 22. At times, it's down to 17. So that means that I've got more time spent without any range in the battery, and that means more time spent with the car not delivering the kind of polish from the powertrain that you'd naturally expect. However, despite this, I am still getting what I think is a pretty impressive fuel economy score. So when I first got the car, it was in the mid to late 50s. Now it's in the early 60s, so 60 to 65 miles per gallon on average. And depending on the journey, that can be an awful lot higher. So it proves that as long as you've got the range in the battery, this car works really, really well indeed. It's just the issue that I don't have the range in the battery as much as I should, and that's therefore letting it down a bit.
Where this car's plug-in hybrid setup does excel is on those long round trips where there's few viable charging points and where a pure EV would leave you anxious. In the 408, you simply use the electric range in and around town and then the petrol engine on the motorway. Because from my experience, if you're driving normally, the fuel economy at high speed is pretty similar whether you have plenty of electric range in hybrid mode or none at all.
So the powertrain has its pros and cons, but as for how the rest of the car drives, I'm pretty impressed overall. In fact, I think it's very good. The ride quality at high speeds is nice and compliant. At lower speeds, through sharp cracks and potholes in the road, that's when it starts to get a bit crashy sometimes, but that's what you pay for the larger wheels. But the refinement and just the general comfort of the car, especially with these seats, I think is very impressive. And then the handling is surprisingly good. It's got a really nice front end on this car. It bites into corners really convincingly. It's got loads of grip, it feels pointy, the steering's alert. I think the only thing that's stopping it from being really good fun is the fairly hefty curb weight, which of course you're going to get with a plug-in hybrid. I'm also a fan of how easy this car is to drive at normal speeds. It's an absolute doddle. The steering's nice and light, it's maneuverable. I think from that point of view, the only couple of things that let it down slightly is a motorway speeds, or on motorways, this B-pillar can turn into a bit of a blind spot. I've had cars almost disappear in there, so watch out for that. There is a blind spot monitoring system, but this is a slight design flaw. It's got an orange light very close to the indicator's repeater, so it's quite easy to confuse the two, if you can see what I mean. And also, the driver assistance systems. Now, this isn't just Peugeot, this is pretty much all cars that are like this, but every time I get in, I have to go into the driver assistance menu and then turn off the lane keep assist, because honestly, it's a pain in the butt if you don't. And then when I do that, I go turn it off, hit confirm, so I've got to take 2 bites at it. But if I want to turn the traction control off, I can just do it in one click. And I don't know about you, but I think that's a little bit odd. I think the traction control, a key safety feature that has saved millions of lives over the years, should be harder to turn off than the lane keeping assist, which I can see the benefits, but when it's executed how it is and it's just oversensitive, everyone just wants to turn it off.
Overall, if you're looking for an SUV that's way more interesting than your usual suspects, I think the Peugeot 408 is absolutely worth a look. The styling is sharp, the cabin is excellent, and it's got more space and practicality than you'd think.
Just bear in mind that if you're looking at the plug-in hybrid version, you need to be able to make sure that you can charge it frequently. Otherwise, you're kind of defeating the point of having the plug-in hybrid. You may as well get the 1.2 litre 3-cylinder, which, while it sounds a bit weedy, it's actually fine for this car because it's also significantly lighter with that engine too. If you can, get the GT version and definitely look at the options list because there are a few things on there that you'll want, especially that 7.4 kilowatt monophase charger because of how it cuts down the charging time.